Good morning. I think the traffic got the better of you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. So I know the G20 is making all things more challenging for people across India, not just in Delhi. Any cricket fans here? Cricket fans? All of us? Great. So yesterday, when I was having my dinner, I stumbled upon an interesting 2019 news item about CSK. By the way, I'm from Chennai. And RCB. Now, in this particular piece, Brendan McCullum, all know him? Yeah? So he had mentioned the difference between these two teams, because he had the opportunity to play for both of them. One team, now if you look at the context, is a 4-time winner, 9-time finalist out of their 13 sessions. The other team has not won the tournament in 15 of their outings. So the difference, he says, CSK backs local talent. So they play cohesively as a unit for a very long time, and they're a very settled unit. RCB's approach to talent, he says, is always to look for the next big blockbuster talent. So they are never a settled unit. Okay? So when I was reading this, I felt like, wow, that's very similar to how by knowing, understanding, and systematically reviewing talent, world-class companies have achieved stellar performance results year after year, decade after decade, creating a steady, self-renewing system of leadership across the organization from the front line all the way up. So in the next 40 odd minutes, I look forward to leveraging the experience of our panelists to draw practical insights on best practices that they have created and have seen and have observed, and provide a perspective from their vantage point. But before we get there to the panel discussion, I'm going to spend 1 minute with you all to help us set the context. You're with me? Give me a thumbs up if you're with me. Great. That's the energy that we need, right? All I need from you is a response to 3 questions I'm going to ask you. Put your hands up, right? If your answer is an yes to any of these questions. In the last 24 months, have you been part of a discussion with a manager or a business leader who's come to you and asked you to handle a critical hiring, a position that's called a critical hiring position for your business? Can you put your hands up? Last 24 months, if half hands is half critical. Yeah, okay. That's about 60-70% of y'all. How many of you felt it was very challenging, especially post this COVID and all these things happening around? It was very challenging for you to hire this critical talent. Okay, that's about 50%, okay, which means that others did not find it very challenging. That's interesting. Third is, how many of you who are present here in your company have a working talent management system? Okay, that's almost like 80% of you all. Okay. Now, if we have a working talent management system, what happened to the successes that we identified when this critical position came up? You may say no, this was a new position. What happened to the talent pool you identified then? Right? That sets the tone. I wanted to be very brief in setting this context. That sets the tone for our opening remarks with the panelists. There are mics working? Okay. So The first question to the panel, to set context, can you share, each one of you, the definition of talent, how talent management practices have evolved over years? Because much has been talked about this topic. This is not a new topic to anyone, right? This is not ChatGPT, right? This has been there for a very long time. And is talent shortage a myth or a reality? That's the, first question. Please add your opening remarks to it.
Thank you for such a wonderful opening. And I would like to answer this question. So I'm a chartered accountant by profession. So I have worked for various companies like Coca-Cola, Bharti Airtel. And prior to Hitachi, I was the operations head. And now I am the CHRO and one of the board of directors and the CEO for Hitachi Systems India. So before getting into the CHRO role, for me, talent was just an expense in the balance sheet. But now I can say talent is your intangible asset in the balance sheet, which is not visible to any of the auditors or the external world. For us, I always say in the financial terms to my HR team, when they say, why the cost is increasing, or the technical team is very tough to retain, I go back to them and say, for us, we are a technical organization. So for me, all these people are my raw material. If they don't deliver the quality, we can't sustain without people. We are solution providers, and it's all because of the people we have in the organization. So I believe talent has always been a scarcity. It's not that we are facing this problem first time in India, or even we go back to our early days when we started our career 20 years back. Similar challenges were there. Now the distraction has increased. I would say moonlighting is there. People are working from home. COVID taught us hybrid. Even India has adopted that. But somewhere, moonlighting like situation is leading to multi-hatting and problems around. But it's all about 80-20 principle in my mind. The organization is being run by 20% of the people. If you see your customers, 20% of the customers take care of your balance sheet or your profitability. So is the talent. If you take care of 20% of the top talent, I think it is sorted. So as Hitachi, we have really worked on top 20% of our people, and we handle them with very care. And we try to give them that special treatment and extra care, which is helping us. Attrition rate was very high a year back. But by making this change, I think we have somewhat solved the problem for our top talent in the organization.
I may not have a mathematical and a numerical definition to the answer, but let me try and address the question that you asked. For us, talent is everyone. We don't define our people in terms of talent or non-talent. We see a very positive outlook, and we define every person who's working in our organization as talent. In terms of, and there are numerous methods, and I'm not going to get into that, but I'm going to address your next question, which is on talent shortage. Now, what defines talent shortage? It is the consumer demand, right? Our business is shaped by what are the requirements of the customer, how the business is changing, and therefore, what is the new skill set that you require in the business. And if everyone is vying for the same, then there is a talent shortage. The way I would like to position this question is that there is talent shortage for niche skills, definitely. So if I just have to take certain examples from Luminous, we are into renewables, solar. We are looking to expand in the area of lithium-ion batteries. And if I just have to talk about, and then we are also looking at connected products and digitization. So now if I just have to break this down, solar is a niche talent. There are very few players in the market. So all of us are vying for the same skills. So is there a shortage? Definitely. If I look at lithium ion, again, it's a very small pool. A lot of companies, startups are in the space. So yes, I can define it like that. Digitization, I think all organizations after COVID are looking at some form of digitization, and it varies, right, on the basis of the business landscape. So yes, there is talent shortage, but we live with the fact, and that is the beauty of it, right? So when we talk about talent management, how is it that you're able to scale up your existing talent and also provide them with careers which are cross-functional, right? And how do you build them internally? And if you're able to do that successfully as an organization, you solve the other problem, which is on retention, right? So yeah, so that's my take. Everyone's a talent shortage is defined by business requirements, what is available in the market, and what we can build internally.
Right. So thanks everyone for being here. I think mostly my co-panelists have covered the most of the things here. I, over the last decade, have been helping organizations design great talent management process. Now that requires developing all the different dimensions of employee performance, right? So if we look at it, most of the organizations today are still, giving people short-term objectives or, the KRAs or the metrics that they need to chase. So in terms of talent, it's set of all the set of competencies, skills, and the experience that people have in the organization is what constitutes the talent. But I would like to bring out a saying from Peter Drucker. So what cannot be measured cannot be improved. Keeping that in mind, I think, it's very important for us to understand what, and, in each corner of the company, what is the talent which exists, right? And what is the degree of that talent? So we, as a technology provider, have been focusing on bringing these dimensions into our technology to help our ecosystem elevate on that. So over the period of time, the methodologies of managing talent has evolved quite a lot, right? So the goal setting processes from the traditional smart goal setting processes to the OKR based setting process. Majorly, it's about giving people the control where they themselves are accountable towards their performance. That requires building that muscle inside people's head. So I think over the period of time, that is something which has changed, and that is something that we're going to see in the upcoming time.
So thank you for this wonderful question, Lionel. Definitely. So I'd like to talk about evolution of talent, management. So earlier we all have seen that video around, having a newest luxuries of life was owning a car, bungalow, and all those stuff. But the newest luxury for this generation is having a freedom to work, having good health, and having a respect in the job that they do. So unless until you're providing this newest luxuries to your talent, you'll always find it difficult to retain talent. So at ESDS, where I come from, we are into data center industry. So we have given our people have a freedom, in case they're not enjoying their work, they have an option of IGT. So if you ask maximum ESDSians, what is the one thing that they're working, in ESDS for, is the freedom that they get. They have a freedom to innovate. They have freedom at various levels. Talking about luxury, that is good health. So post-pandemic, everyone has become very conscious about it. And we have various plans and things, policies, everything, right from food that we serve in cafeteria. Everything is health-centric, nutrition, and designed by every nutritionist and everything. So we take care of arranging forest walk and all those such stuff where people enjoy their health and respect. So whenever there is some hiring drive that is conducted at ESDS, our CEO makes it mandatory that we give good food, everyone who's there, who's taken good care of. So we have seen, over many MNCs, people are willing to join ESDS because of the culture that we have created here. So, and retaining talent has rarely been a problem.
Okay, so culture of respect that's helped you as a company to attract talent. Okay, so to the luminous approach of where we say okay, fine, if I'm kind of having somebody on board, which means that they are talent to me, right? To the kind of processes that gets designed and around talent, and looking at the traditional approach of 80-20. Okay, so for this question, I'll go to Neharika and say okay, if you see, we have 80% of the audience typically putting their hands up saying that, yeah, we have a well-defined process. Right? We have a well-defined talent management process. Now, ultimately, there are good ones, but there are superlative ones. In your experience, if you have to decode the superlative ones, okay, that stand out, and that stand out the test of time, right? What are some of the ingredients that you have observed a good talent management system should have?
One is it should be agile, it should be flexible. Going back to the quote, different strokes for different folks, right? And when we look at the workforce, it comprises of people from different generations. So therefore, one talent management approach will not work. Organizations have to be agile enough to understand the needs of the workforce that they have and then define their talent management practices. If I just have to think about what is working these days, and I just have to do a summary of it, I think the broader picture is the pull for an organization is first, what is the sense of purpose which the organization is driving at? If an organization is able to define a sense of purpose which an employee can relate to, I think that's the first win. To take an example from Luminous, what is our sense of purpose? Our sense of purpose is that we should be able to provide electricity to each child in the remotest of area. And that energizes us. So that's the broad sense of purpose that we have. So define a good sense of purpose in your organization. That's fun. Second is that also have a very strong employer value proposition. Be clear in terms of what is it that you as an organization want to talk about. Enablers in terms of, policies, also be very careful. I don't want to, I just want you all to be very careful. When we talk about policies, again, differentiate, right? Every employee is at a very different stage in their life journey. So ensure that you take care of all. I sometimes get worried because we keep talking about the fact that, there are so many millennials who are entering the workforce. Yes, we value them, but there's also the experience which exists in the organization. So how is it that you're able to create a culture where both of them can give the best? And that's the last point that I have, which is on culture. I think culture as an enabler is a very strong value proposition for the organization. So what is that culture that you want to create which enables the workforce to deliver your larger sense of purpose, which is where the organization exists, right? I think that is important. In a nutshell, define your purpose, ensure that you have an enabling culture which exists, ensure that you take care of all aspects of your workforce. Don't ignore anyone. Be supportive to everyone in terms of your policies and processes. And finally, be agile. What existed 2 years for us has completely changed in the world. So are you agile? Are you nimble enough to change it and to adapt it to the changing world? I think that's the success that you will have then.
So is there anything that you want to add there? Like, for example, any other ingredients that you're seeing as superlative?
Right. So what Niharika said is very precise, actually. So if we look at it, the sense of purpose is what drives and what fuels everybody in the organization, right? And we all understand here that largely it comes from the leadership itself, right? So when any organization, so we as a product, as a technology, have been working with startups for a long period of time. So we realized that this, when an organization is born, there is a very clear sense of purpose. There is a problem that the business is trying to solve for the community, and that is where the value chain is getting built. But if we look at it, once this purpose starts seeping down, right, every person that's joining in your organization is also coming with their own set of purpose. So that alignment between an employee's purpose and the organization purpose is where the entire game is. I believe that very strongly. So I would like to quote one of the processes which Google follows, where that every organization has a greater than humanity purpose, organizing the world's information and providing it to everybody in the planet for free, right? So that is something which they wrote in 1998 as a purpose. Then eventually we look at it, when the employees join, they have simpler purposes than that, right? So how do we align people to that purpose, right? So that is where they, as a goal setting process, what they do is that there is a there are two goal setting processes. So there is a long term aspirational objectives that employees write, where they stand today, and 5 years down the line, what do they aspire to be, and how the near time or the committed objectives which are there for the quarter or a year, how will that contribute to that big aspirational objective? So this is something where I think it's very critical, very important, and that should actually bring that sense of purpose and alignment in terms of our forces.
So I'm going to go to Raj for the next question. So in an uncertain business environment, right, where we see that all the familiar competitive advantages, the forces of competitive advantages are being challenged, including the half-life of a competency is coming down, right? So in this kind of a scenario, right, what are some of the traditional beliefs or practices that we have around talent development systems that need to be rethought through?
So we are a typical company where we face this problem every day in, day out, because we work a lot on the cybersecurity and cloud environment, where it's very tough to find the talent, and the attrition rate is very high, as you mentioned, that they're niche in nature, so it's very difficult to find them. So we go back and follow the 7 habits of highly effective people, where we say it's an interdependent world, and we really need to have a partner ecosystem in place. We need to have management trainees in place who are the next level of people who can take over the roles, and we do the shadowing of the management trainee with the existing talent. So now, over the period of two years, I think we are settled with interdependency, wherein we have partner ecosystem. We have defined our rules of the game, which things we'll do on our own, where we'll engage the partners, and it's working well, because we can't be all alone in the industry. We actually we take our competition also along with us, so that we coexist. So I think that's my answer to this.
Fantastic
question.
So Komal, you come from a very different perspective of a startup, right? Now everything, like she said, has to be very agile, right? But at the same time, things are moving around you so fast. At the same time, okay, culture is one binding factor, but beyond that, are there things that you have challenged the status quo? Because I remember you mentioning that you also created a framework around how you deployed a successful talent development system. So can you just give us a couple of insights on that quickly?
So I have at ESGS, we have defined happiness framework. So everyone have different levels of happinesses. Some may find intellectually challenged, like that may be a happiness to him. Spiritually, people would be inclined. So one size doesn't fit all. And that's why we identify who are the right people, right fit for the right department or job role. So suppose someone is into sales. So for him, being socially happy is important. Emotional happiness is important. But until he feels financial happiness as an important aspect, we have seen people not performing. Though they are intellectual, but if they don't want to earn a lot of money, so they are not performing. So we have created this framework around organization where...
So how do you apply this?
So we have different surveys and all around it, where we identify what are their patterns, what are their happiness types, so some may find social happiness, some may find intellectual. So what are the combinations of that? And also, what is the prototype of our organization? So ESDS is an organization where intellectual is definitely important. We are an environmental friendly organization. It is our mission to plant 1 billion trees. So we look forward for people who are emotionally and environmentally happy.
Aligned, okay.
Yeah.
Fine. You want to add something there?
I was just going to ask, you said, what are the traditional approaches?
Yes.
Right? I was just thinking about that question, and going back to what I said, that, one has to be agile and nimble, right? Now, if we just look back at what's happening, we have almost 70% millennials which are there in our workforce. Now, if we sit with the same traditional outlook, and I'm just going to give one example, that, okay, a promotion will happen only after 5 years, or a career will be a subset of taking A step, B step, C step. I think it's not working now, right? So I think as HR professionals and as an organization, we have to be much more, we have to take many more risks, and we have to change our outlook. Right? It's all about how is a person able to build up the skills quickly. It's all about the potential of the person. And we need to relook at how we approach the entire system, right? It doesn't have to be traditional any longer. a career can be built from different functions, different paths, and that's what we need to propose in the organization, because it will go back to the point of retention and building careers in the organization.
Right.
So the set pattern of how we used to look at, I think it has gone a paramount shift, and we need to kind of go forward with this thought process.
Right. For the next question, I'm going to go to Kshitij, and because he's as a consultant, he would have a view on what's happening around in different organizations. So I would request the other panelists to add their remarks after he does, and also add your closing remarks in that process. So we are dealing with paradoxes today, right? Now, the complex of all these paradoxes is that, like for example, on one side, we are saying that talent development process, okay, it's a very long-term process. On the other side, we have employees whose career cycles are very short. She just mentioned that, right? So they're kind of like, they're not looking in the lens of 10 years, 20 years or lifelong careers, but they're looking in the cycles of 2 years, 3 years, and maximum 5 years, okay? So, but talent development is going to take its own time, right? So how are we going to deal with these kind of paradoxes? One. Number two, there are many such. I'll just leave two here. It's increasingly getting difficult for businesses to make money, big or small, however big or small you are, right? But you need resources deployed to kind of make your talent management process work. Now, how have you seen companies navigate through these paradoxes recently? Any examples?
Right. So before I come to recent, I'll like to go almost a decade back. So when we started building our platform, like this journey has been very organic for me. I was like pretty young. A couple of years of experience working with Google, and then I came into this company. We used to fit in a room, 10 people with the founder, and we used to try to find that sense of purpose of building this. Right. So the generic process of building a technology is very simple. You go to the market, you ask market what you require, where do you spend your time, what takes maximum amount of effort for you to do, and then you create that as a as a automated process and solve it for people. So in the entire talent management space, or what we saw initially, the processes are very static in nature. So there's a goal setting process happening in the beginning of the year. Then there is a certain frequency after which there is a review process that will happen, and then we will figure out that which of the people performed, which of the people did not perform, and so on, right? So the problem with that static approach was that the time was already gone, right? We can't go back in time and improve people performance. The only possible option that we had was moving forward with it and hoping that they'll do it better this time, right? But again, it was again a hope, because the assessment will happen 1 year later. So, over the period of time, I've seen a lot of HR thought leaders being pushing in this area to develop a continuous performance framework, right? Talent framework, where, we develop people through constructive feedbacks. So we as technology, we started building that, into the product. So where we brought in interactive goal sheets, which, where people can continuously come and update their progress against their objectives, and the system will reflect if they are going to crack their goals, if their goals are on track or not, right? And other than that, we also brought in the competency and the core values framework. So these were initial things, right? But if we look at it, every single pivotal that we designed was very important, which was like, let's say we look at the process from weightages to the rating scales, everything has some value added to it. So that is where I have seen the shift happening. So we also as a technology have been trying, we are at, being a technology, the core purpose of us is to enable people, is to enable the workplaces. So we brought in mobile application, we brought in walls into our platform where people can freely express. They can come, they can share, the things which are happening, right? Any productive feedbacks that they want to give to their teams. So we built this into the technology just to make sure that this increases, right? So the core problem in the organizations is that once they start growing, right? Every department or every team is there in their own silo, right? And these silos are creating biases. There is a negativity bias, there is a recency bias, there is, halo and horn effect, right? So all of that was possible to be countered if we build a continuous conversation culture into the platform. And that is where I've seen a big change happening over a period of time. With 2020, this got even better because, almost every organization, they went through a business continuity planning because people went back to their homes, right? So that's where the technology, the core things that we wanted to solve as a problem, it picked up. And today I think that, that is where the direction of the HR ecosystem is.
Okay, I want to go to Raj. Raj, you spoke about how you are looking at it very differently from having been a finance professional to a HR professional to a CEO, country CEO. What percentage of time is being invested by leadership in your organization to even develop that 20% that you identify?
So what we do, something off track, I'll say. So we make 10 days Diwali holiday as a culture in this organization from last 3 years to make people happy. When it comes to the appraisal, 2 weeks in April after the books closure, no customers, no customer meeting, no QBRs, no MBRs, 2 weeks only about people. People have to sit with their managers and have an open heart discussion and find the value proposition. Okay, the technology is important, documentation has to happen so that the follow-up is there. But we are saying at least spend 1.5 hours or 1 hour quality hours with your employees, because people don't leave the organization, they leave the managers. We all know that. And it has really helped us that 2 weeks is known in Hitachi Systems India that we do only talk about people. Okay. It's really helping us.
I'll go to Niharika, because your approach is that everyone is a talent. You don't have unlimited resources. Like, how do you manage?
First, I'll challenge you on the question itself. I don't think that talent management as a concept requires so many resources. All right. I think it's the day of creativity. Okay. And I have a very different approach to it. Yes, we will all be pressurized about funds, profitability, but I think if 2-3 things I'll talk about. One is that what have you done in the past to skill up your own function? That's point number one. What is the kind of culture that you have created? Have you created a culture where there's a growth mindset, where conversations happen on development? For me, development is not about getting an external consultant and asking them to do some intervention. For me, development is what are the kind of opportunities which exist in the organization? Are you taking bets on people? And I said, going back to what I said earlier, you have a role available. Do you have that mindset to change and to actually put your money on someone who may not have that experience? So development can happen in a lot of ways, right? It doesn't require funds. It requires all of us to be more creative and more agile.
When I say resources, it's not just about funds. I'm talking about, for example, you take the most successful companies who have decade after decade created a leadership pipeline, right? There are leadership factories. Like, for example, Hindustan Unilever is a great example, right? How many CEOs come out of levers, right? So in IT, Cognizant used to be a company which produces CEOs. There's an article around it, right? If you look at these companies, one of the biggest resources they deploy is the leadership time. One thing that I asked Raj, he said, okay, 2 weeks. Now, Sachin said a very different perspective, continuous, loop, right? So, okay, very intense 2 weeks to continuous it. The approach can be different for different companies because the realities are very different from company to company. But the amount of time the leader is willing to spend with his team member, going beyond lip service, is very, very important to develop talent, right? In your company, right from CEO to you and all of you, how much time do you spend with your talent?
So every Thursday we have this policy that none of our leaders shall sit in cabin. They have to sit with their teams and they have to spend time in knowing them, understanding what are they, guiding them, and planning what are the challenges that they are facing. So every Thursday, right from our CEO, none of the leaders.
Will you be able to sustain this as you grow up and scale up? Today you're a startup, okay, you're saying okay, all leaders, no cabin. Now, as a large company, in my company itself, including my CEO, nobody has a cabin. Anywhere you walk into my company, you don't find a cabin, okay? So, do you think it will be sustainable for you as a culture as you evolve, as you
So
grow.
to that, there is an addition, like, so we have this as a part of strategy that we want to create 25 intrapreneurs, taking care of our products. And also we are working towards that. We have self-appraisal, self-promotion portal in place where people, whoever are the fast learners, we have a green corridor for them. So there are various other things in addition to this, that builds the culture. So it's just not one, sitting out of cabin. It's overall framework that makes it.
Last thoughts?
I'm just saying that these are all initiatives,
Right.
But if the culture of the organization, it really depends on that. It depends on what is the mindset that you have. Yes, it boils down to how the leadership, what is the approach of the leadership. Initiatives can always run around. You can spend 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever. But the belief, is it there? Not there. How do they view people?
Right.
The growth mindset. So I go back to the fact that it really depends on the culture that exists in the organization.
Exactly. So as they say, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So it should not exist in paper. If it exists in paper, your talent development strategy is as good as a boilerplate, but it does not go and trickle down to the last guy who is on the front line doing his work for you. So thank you so much, panel, for wonderful thoughts that you have shared. I enjoyed listening to each of you. I am sure those who beat the Delhi traffic and joined us today did as well. Thank you.